Hi there, Jason Miller here, and this is The Truth and Stuff. This is my video channel on Brighteon.com. It is February 9th, 2022. And this first video is going to be, I think I'm going to call it my review on The Power of the Dog, which is a film with Benedict Cumberbatch, I think is how you pronounce his name, and it's a Western. And it's the film that got nominated for the most Oscars. I believe it was 12 Oscars, which is a lot that the film got nominated for. So I'll probably talk about the Oscars a little too. I'm going to give you a little bit of my history. So I'm a film lover, a film buff, and a film professional, kind of a cinephile. The art of film is, and the business is so complex that I don't believe anybody can know it all, but I think that I've got a pretty good handle on a lot of it. And so, people seem to like my reviews. I tend to give a little different perspective than a lot of other people do. And so, I'm going to give you my review on Power of the Dog today. Again, my background is I always loved movies. We didn't have a TV or, television until I was like 8, no TV at all. But before that we had VCRs, so we'd go down and rent a movie like several weekends, a month, maybe 1 or 2 weekends a month. And, I'd watch cartoons like Super Ted and Transformers and, approved movies by my parents, Old Yeller and stuff. Some of my first films that I remember seeing The Dark Crystal, really scared me. And there was a show, once we got television, on at midnight on, I think it was Fridays or Saturdays, called Friday the 13th. And it's just a show about haunted objects in an antique store that, with a couple of ghost hunter type characters that would hunt these objects down. It was really creepy and fun, but, and then in high school, I started watching more movies and stuff. We got cable and satellite, I was really lucky, to grow up during this time of, cinematic advance. We went from celluloid film, 35 millimeter, to digital over the course of my career. When I started working, they were really making that transition from celluloid to digital. When I started, it was pretty much all celluloid. There was a few digital movies. And then by the time, now there's very rarely a movie that's made on actual film. It's all digital now, which makes sense. The digital cameras are better. I miss the celluloid sometimes, but my favorite, I like to say I have about 20, 30 movies in my top 5, just because I love movies. I think there's still so many great movies that come out, and there's been so many great ones over the years. And, like my favorite show is probably Dexter, the first 8 seasons anyway. And then, the best show ever made, I'm convinced, is The Sopranos. Is really great. I think Game of Thrones is very good. And there's a number of other ones, but those are probably my top 3. Top movies. I really like Jeremiah Johnson, especially now that, the world's getting so crazy. I just relate so much. I just want to head to the woods and disappear, I really like the movie Gattaca. I think it's very prolific, or prophetic, But, and then I worked in film for like 10 years. I did everything from the bottom all the way up to, producing major motion pictures. And feature documentary films with big budgets and everything from little student films to really big ones. You know, assisting, producer's assistant, art department, script supervising, acting, writing, producing, directing, all that stuff. And so, and I've also seen probably 20 to 30,000 hours of major motion pictures. Anyways, let's get into it. So, this year there's been two movies that really got, that I've seen that have got, that got the most Oscar nominations, and those are Power of the Dog and Don't Look Up. I've already made a review of the film Don't Look Up, and so I stand by that review. I think it's very good, very important, but I'm going to talk about that just briefly, and then I'm going to get into the Power of the Dog. So, at first glance, Don't Look Up is a pretty silly movie. It seems very lighthearted and goofy. It's bright colors. It's got that really saturated vibe, kind of cartoonish. And there's a reason for that. It just seems like a fun movie about human ineptitude and a metaphor for climate change, but it's much more than that. It's really a very powerful propaganda movie, that Democrats especially will love, because the Democrats are really easily taken by the propaganda. You can say what you want about Republicans, but at least they don't, eat up the garbage mainstream stuff as much. And so the Democrats are pretty much guaranteed to love it. I mean, love it, because it's just, that's who it's aimed at. But as an anti-Democrat, which I am, I just, I really think the Democrats are, a very dangerous political party. And I have a keen eye for cinema, so I hated it. I mean, I think it's fascinating, and I have to give it a lot of credit for how brilliant it is in the way of propaganda. But I hated the film, again, I can't help but marvel at it, because I've never seen a movie even close to this one with as much, to Don't Look Up, with as much subtle, worked in propaganda. The film subtly hints at every single mainstream narrative just constantly throughout the film. It's insane. It's really just a prime example of how they manipulate people's minds. It's it's anti-Christian, and this is just a small list of the things that it does. It's anti-Christian, it's anti-white, it's anti-male, it's anti-capitalism, it's anti-Republican, it's anti-Alex Jones, anti-Donald Trump, anti-conspiracy theory. They really slam all that stuff constantly. Just constantly. And of course, it's, pro-religious science and academia cult, follow the science, follow academia, which we know, a lot of what they call science is not science at all. It's just propaganda, just lies posing as science. And the same as with academia, obviously. I hope you know that by now. It's, let's see here. It's pro-space crap. It's pro-Democrat. It's pro-liberal. It's pro-SJW. It's pro-environmentalist. It's pro-abortion. It's pro-drug use. Pro-alcohol. Pro on and on through the entire movie about all these, authoritarian, mainstream agendas. And of course, it's anti-human. it really is anti-human. It's projecting that, you know, main narrative on how humans are actually a virus, how humans are so inept, how humans are so destructive, you know, which of course has some truth to it. But, you know, I mean, the environmental cult is, you know, it's a death cult is what it is. You know, these people are really brainwashed into thinking that, you know, they themselves are a virus and everyone else is a virus. So to hate themselves and to hate others, you know, in the name of the planet. I've actually seen these people on several occasions say, I just wish all humans would die so the planet would be okay. That's how stupid and brainwashed these people are. And you know, the propaganda in Don't Look Up is seamless. It's really, really powerful, really, you know, crafted with the idea to be absolutely 100% as brainwashing as possible, you know, as nuanced and seamless and just effective as possible. You know, it's, you know, and I think it probably will win the Oscar, you know, for Best Picture or Best Director, definitely, you know, or best, you know, for that reason, when it's really, you know, it really is a powerful film in the way of propaganda. You know, and of course, that's why they hired one of the most expensive casts in history of movies. I mean, you know, let's just name a couple. It's got Leonardo DiCaprio, right? Recent Oscar winner for his role in The Revenant. He's a good actor, but he's also, you know, one of their favorite puppets. And he's just, you know, the highest paid actor probably in the world. You know, Jennifer Lawrence, she's the top female actor in the country. You know, I mean, just, you can just go. I mean, her movies are long and, you know, almost as long and almost as incredible as Leonardo DiCaprio's. You know, she's, you know, in X-Men and, man, see that now I'm gonna have trouble drawing on a lot of her movies, but just absolutely top draw actress. Meryl Streep, obviously, I mean, she's won more Oscars than any other actor or actress in history, I believe. Cate Blanchett, you know, just a very strong actor. You know, she's extremely versatile. She's extremely captivating, way better than Meryl Streep, in my opinion. You know, probably the best actor on this film. Cate Blanchett is a powerful actor, and also obviously very popular. Let's see who else we got. Tyler Perry, you know, he's just the top black filmmaker in the world. Jonah Hill, one of the top comedians in the country. You know, probably the top comedic actor in the country. Jonah Hill. Ron Perlman, just a, you know, a very unique face. You know, Hellboy, and, you know, he's just been in a number of different roles that are very big movies, and he's a hardcore left-wing activist. Ariana Grande, who's, you know, a recording artist, very beautiful, very good singing voice, and, you know, probably, I mean, this movie got the top pick for all of these roles. You know, I mean, you couldn't cast it more powerfully than they did. It's like Casino. You know, Scorsese said that he got every one of his picks for Casino. This is the same way, this film. You know, and that is to sell. You know, they did that. You know, Adam McKay, the director, producer, writer, you know, is probably the top comedic and one of the top directors in Hollywood. I'm not going to be able to draw on any of his previous films, but you can look him up. And, you know, let's see. So, you know, and so they do it not just to sell all these little, you know, aspects of propaganda all throughout the film, but that's extremely important. But they really want to sell one big lie in particular, and that is the lie of elite incompetence, that the people in the top don't know what they're doing. And that's why things are all screwed up. Almost everyone falls for this lie. The left wing, obviously, but also tons of right wingers they play into the political theater. They think, oh, the country's so bad because Joe Biden's so stupid, or so crooked, and, or whatever. And, that is just so far from the case. Biden's a puppet. The people in control are super smart, super organized, super dangerous, and super, just motivated to destroy humanity and have their, and be authority over everybody on the planet. And that's the cause of the most of the problems that we see, truly. And so, this big lie, it's probably one of the most important things to understand about our world is that, because what happens is when they blame it on ineptitude, that it gives them deniability, if the idea that, the people in charge are just screw-ups and stupid, and that's why we have all these problems, gives, the real elites in control of society deniability, right? But once you understand that all these problems, from the problems in the economy to food shortages to, environmental pollution and the lack of, proper medical treatments and, the lack of good health in people, the lack of poor education system, and, everything falls apart, for, planned obsolescence and, products like automobiles are only designed to last 5 or 10, 20 years. That's why they only last that long. If they wanted, they could make a car that would last 100 years, but they don't. Why? Because they'd never sell you another car. They couldn't charge you. They couldn't tax you. It's essentially a tax on everything you buy, the planned obsolescence. And, what else? I mean, the vaccines don't work. The ridiculous COVID measures, the masks and lockdowns and vaccines and, social distancing, none of it works. And they knew none of it would work, but they did it anyway. Why? Because it's designed to screw us up. It's not because they're stupid. It's because they're smart and they're screwing everything up on purpose. Why? Because then it gives them much more control over us. Very simple, but extremely important, extremely powerful mind control, extremely powerful propaganda, extremely powerful, really what it is it's a mind control spell. The idea that the leaders are incompetent, and that's the big lie that this movie sells. And, frankly, and so the movie itself is a giant trick. Just like they're playing a giant trick on us, the movie itself is a trick on us in order to get us believe this, huge lie that they're inept, the leaders. And so in that way, it really is a brilliant propaganda film. Probably the most, effective film in this regard that I've ever seen. And so, I have to take my hat off to it. I think it probably, a lot of people will recognize it, and I think it'll definitely win some Oscars. I don't know about Best Picture or Best Director, but we'll see. So that's, I also have another video that's longer on, Don't Look Up that you can watch. It's on my YouTube, and it's also on my Brighteon channel, The Truth and Stuff. My YouTube is Cortisol Bear, which is a shout out to Owen Benjamin. So let's do, and this, another interesting thing about both of these films is they're Netflix originals. Some people call it Obama Flicks because my understanding is he is a major shareholder, if not a controlling shareholder of Netflix, which is very interesting, isn't it? So, now I'm going to do my review of Power of the Dog. And so Power of the Dog is a Western. It's set in 1925, I think, Montana. I think they actually filmed it in New Zealand, but very beautiful cinematography. It's exactly the kind of cinematography and the stories I like Jeremiah Johnson, the Western landscape of just absolute beautiful mountains, beautiful fields, beautiful rivers, um, you know, uh, cattle ranching, and Western motifs, Western clothes, just very cool in that regard. It's head up by Benedict Cumberbatch. It's got a number of very other strong actors in it, although the cast is small. There's really just four primary characters. And I'm sorry, but I don't have their names. One is Kirsten Dunst, and I don't know the redhead's name, but he's gotten a number of very good roles. He's a very good actor. And then the kid is a good actor as well. But so it's about a cowboy. So this cowboy, he inherited a ranch from his father with his brother, and he's a real hard ass to his brother. He calls him Fatso, and this cowboy Benedict Cumberbatch's character is very, he's very tough. He's very meticulous. He's very proficient at what he does. He's very, serious guy. He's very, and to start getting into the theme, he's very angry and conflicted and mean, and he's just got a number of these doggish type qualities, which is really important that you get to the end of this video, because I'm going to read something to you that I really think is a great prelude to this film. It's something I found out that's actually pretty fascinating. So again, this rancher, he's very tough. I think he's like 40 or something, maybe 45 or 50, but very young, very, very tough, and just a real cowboy. You know what I mean? So his brother ends up marrying a woman who already has a grown child who's got to be at least 15, somewhere between the ages of 15 and 20, I think. And this cowboy brother's very hard on them. She starts drinking heavily, and the boy's probably gay, and so, well, I'm quite sure that that's one of the themes. And so he gives him a hard time about being kind of a Nancy boy, and just for being very feminine and stuff. And and she's the new wife, the brother's wife, starts drinking too much, and her son, the Nancy boy, is kind of depressed and doesn't like being around this mean brother cowboy and stuff. But of course, the kicker is that the tough cowboy himself is actually gay. He's a repressed homosexual, right? And and he's secretly gay. 1925 Montana. It's kind of a Brokeback Mountain theme, right? Which is a movie that I actually like quite a bit. It's just very well done, and it's again the Western themes that I like. But of course, so then the kid catches him being gay, or he, gets into some of his magazines where there's like nude pictures of buff men, and he catches him, I think, like masturbating while he's bathing or something, which is like this guy's secret space where he's tough all day, and then he goes and he bees all girly and stuff, in his, when he when he bathes, or just rarely he goes off and kind of acts very feminine and sexual, this tough gay mean cowboy. But and so you know he then befriends the kid, of course, and there's like a sexual tension between them, and like he teaches him to ride horse and stuff, and just to become a little tougher, and let's see here. So they're out working on a fence, and they spot a rabbit, and they play a little game where how many poles can you pull off the pile before the rabbit runs out. And he hurts his hand, the gay cowboy does, the gay tough cowboy, and quite badly. And the rabbit breaks his leg. They kill the rabbit, and and then there's a scene where they're really looking out at this mountain that supposedly has this, it's like looking at a cloud, and in this mountain they see a picture of a dog barking, or the image, or the formation in the mountain of a barking dog. And he's very taken back that the boy can see it, because no one else has seen it since his old teacher and hero, the guy that taught him to be cowboy. And so this is a very emotional guy, very emotional. And and then he spends all night, and then so they keep some rawhides from the cattle that they ranch, and for some reason, I can't entirely figure this out. I think he might have planned on hanging himself or something, but he builds rope out of the rawhide, and the drunk wife sells or gives away all the rawhides, so he gets really pissed off. And then the kid says, well, I actually happen to have a rawhide, because he pulled a hide off a dead animal, a dead cow, a sick cow. And then, so he gives the little cowboy the rawhide so he can make the kid a rope. And in the course of doing that, he stays up all night with the kid, building this rope out of the rawhide, with his hurt hand. So it's a very grueling, emotional thing for him. He's just fighting through this pain to build a rope for this kid, because, again, he's so emotional, he's so tied to this cowboy way, but he also wants to give back to this gay kid, that obviously didn't get the love that he got, the understanding, the acceptance that he got as a kid, a gay kid, obviously. I believe there's a backstory there that isn't shared, about how his teacher and master and the guy that raised him up as a cowboy died. I think there might have been an incident or something where the cowboy was found out as gay, and he might have killed his master, or his master might have left, or his teacher, I'm not sure. But because of the rawhide, his hand ends up getting infected, and the tough gay cowboy dies in the end. And so he's kind of passed on, not just his legacy of cowboy to this kid, but also some affection, and some understanding and love for being gay, right? And so, it's actually a pretty good movie. I found it, not super entertaining, but well done. It's made, in kind of the same tone and taste as my favorite movie, one of my favorite movies, which is a movie called There Will Be Blood. It's got a very similar score. It's got very similar lighting and very similar landscapes, another Western. Thematically, it's kind of similar with the sexual tension, and There Will Be Blood. Daniel Plainview, they don't tell you in the movie, but it's in the book. He was actually injured in a fall while digging for oil and gold, and so in one of his mines, and so he can't. So I don't think he can't perform sexually, so he becomes very angry. Plainview does, and this cowboy is very similar. Um, and there's a and then the cinematography is just beautiful the same way, and so but there's actually a biblical theme to this. I learned, and so I want to read you this excerpt I found on Bible Hub, which is just a website I really like. If you ever have any questions about the Bible, you can just type into DuckDuckGo. What does the Bible say about this? Any question you have. What does the Bible say about salvation? What does the Bible say about sex? What does the Bible say about revenge? What does the Bible say about anger, or love or lust or greed, or any of any topic really? And Bible Hub gives you just scriptures. It doesn't even give you interpretation. It just says these are the scriptures about that, and then you can read and kind of decide for yourself. But I found this really interesting excerpt on Bible Hub that I want to read to you because I think it explains this movie pretty well. And what I did is I just searched Bible verse in the Power of the Dog, because there's a verse that's read at the beginning and the end of the film. So I wanted to understand that verse. I hadn't heard it before that I remembered. I mean, I've read Psalms tons of times, but I didn't recall it. And so let's read this. So the verse is, "Deliver my soul from the sword, my darling from the power of the dog." Okay? And I'm not going to explain it. What I'm going to do is read this excerpt because I think it's very good. And it's a little long, but if you stick with me and hear this before or after you read the movie, I think you'll understand the movie much better. So, dogs in the East are not much thought of and never properly treated. The varieties with which we are familiar, they know nothing of. The dogs they had were but of one kind, all hungry, half-starved, savage, cowardly, and more like wolves than dogs. But with us, the dog is not only useful and beloved, but often displays the noblest qualities. For instance, courage. God expects us to have courage. Deuteronomy 31. And the dog sets us a good example in this respect. Take this story of an incident which took place in the town of New Brunswick, New Jersey. A horse attached to a wagon in one of the streets became frightened and started off in a run. The owner of the wagon was thrown from his seat as the horse started and was left lying on the street. The horse went galloping along, increasing his speed every moment, till he reached the corner of the next street. There a large Newfoundland dog made his appearance. He looked at the horse for a moment and then sprang out into the street and rushed towards the horse's head. The dog made repeated efforts by springing up to grasp the bridle firmly with his teeth, but he failed each time and fell to the ground, narrowly escaping injury from the horse's feet. But the brave dog kept on trying, and at least making an extraordinary spring into the air. He grasped the bridle firmly in his teeth and, pulling down the horse's head, put a stop to his running away. As soon as this was done, the dog turned around and quietly walked away. But the people standing by, who had witnessed the dog's noble action, when they thought of the injury which might have been done by the runaway horse, felt disposed to praise very highly the conduct of the dog, for the greatest act of courage they had ever seen a dumb animal perform. The next lesson we may learn from the dog is intelligence. God looks for intelligent understanding of his will in us all. See the opening verse of Proverbs 2. And the dog sets us a good example of understanding and then obeying what we are told to do. A gentleman connected with the Newfoundland fishery had a dog of remarkable intelligence and fidelity. On one occasion, a boat's crew in his employ were seen to be in circumstances of great danger. They were near a line of breakers outside of the harbor over which the waves were dashing and roaring in great fury. The danger of passing those breakers was so great that the men, brave as they come, did not dare attempt it. A crowd of people stood watching them on the shore with great anxiety, but could do nothing to help them. Much time had passed, and the danger was increasing every moment. Among the people on the shore was the fishery master, Great Newfoundland's dog. He seemed to understand what the danger was. Presently he ran to the water, jumped in, and swam towards the boat. He soon made his way through the surf, and the men in the boat saw him coming near to them. At first they thought he wanted to get into the boat, but it soon became evident that that was not his purpose. He did not come near the boat, but kept swimming around it. While doing this, he looked earnestly at the men and would whine from time to time. The men wondered what he wanted. At last, one of them cried out, "Give him a rope. That's what he wants." The rope was thrown. The dog seized the end of it with his mouth and then turned round and swam toward the shore. The men waiting there took hold of it and began to pull it. And in a short time, the boat with its crew was hauled through the dangerous surf, and the men on board of it were landed safely on the shore. And so the lives of the boat crew were saved by the intelligent and noble dog. Pretty cool, huh? So the third thing is affecting. Love brought Jesus to die for us. God so loved the world that, etc. So John 3:16. And he desires love to be the ruling principle in our lives. Even dogs have shown this in remarkable ways. The captain of the artillery company of South Carolina was killed in a battle in Virginia during the American Civil War. His body was placed in a coffin, which was put in a strong box and carried to the home of his family in Columbia. It arrived there about a week after his death. On his arrival, the captain's dog that he had reared and petted during his lifetime was at the gate, and approaching the house, began to smell about him. With a good deal of excitement, when the coffin was taken from the hearse, he ran under it and followed it to the horse between the pallbearers. Although a week had passed by since his master's death, and his body was closely fastened up in the coffin, yet by the sense of smell alone, the dog had found out that it was his master's body which was in that coffin, and this stirred up all of his affection for him. When the coffin was put down under the table and remained there till the funeral took place on the next day. Then after the funeral, the dog took his place on the grave of his old master. They tried to coax him away, but in vain. He would stay there. He refused to eat or drink, but lay moaning there till the third day after the funeral, when he died on his master's grave. How real and genuine that dog's affection for his master was. You see, this excerpt is very good, and we're getting to the end here. Of this excerpt, okay? The last one is fidelity. This is the most important lesson. Whatever other good elements of character we may have, they will all be of little use to us without faithfulness. The want of it is like a hole in a purse, which lets all the money run out and be lost. Now, dogs have often been noted for fidelity. A French merchant was riding home on horseback one day. He had a large bag of gold with him, which was tied to the saddle in front of him, and was accompanied by a faithful dog. After a long ride, he stopped to rest himself and eat lunch, which he had with him. He alighted from the horse and sat down under a shady tree, taking the bag of gold and laying it down by his side. On mounting his horse again, he forgot to take his bag of gold with him. The dog saw the mistake his master had made and tried to take the bag with him, but it was too heavy for him to drag along. Then he ran after his master and tried by barking to remind him of his mistake, but the merchant did not understand what the dog meant. The dog went in front of his master and kept jumping up before the horse and barking loudly. The merchant called to him to be quiet and stop that jumping, but the dog wouldn't stop. Then his master was alarmed. He began to think that the dog must be going mad, and as the dog went on barking and jumping with increasing violence, the merchant felt sure he was right. He said to himself, "He may bite me or someone else. The only safe thing will be to kill him." Then he took a pistol from his pocket and pointed it to the dog, fired at him. The poor dog fell, weltering in his blood, and his master, unable to bear the sight, put spurs to the horse and went on. "I am very unfortunate," he said to himself. "I would rather have lost my bag of money than my good dog." Then he felt for his bag, but it was not there. In a moment he saw what it all meant. The dog had seen that he had left his bag of money behind him and was trying the best he could to get him to go back for it when he shot him. How sorry he felt. Then he turned his horse and rode back to the place where he had left his money. On reaching the spot, he found the dog there. He had crawled back, all bleeding as he was, and had laid down beside the master's money to protect it. This brought the tears into the merchant's eyes. He kneeled down by the dog, petted him, and spoke kindly to him. The dog looked lovingly into his face, licked his hand, and then turned over and died. The merchant had the body of the dog carried home and buried in his garden, and over its grave he had a stone slab set up, and with these words engraved on it, "In the memory of a faithful dog." Such are some of the lessons we may learn from the dog. Isn't that wonderful? So, that was an excerpt called The Dog on Bible Hub. Now, this is an excerpt called The Power of the Dog on Bible Hub, and this really sums it all up. This is so wonderful. I hope you've made it this far. So this is a sermon to children. The Bible does not generally speak well of dogs. The word dog in the scripture often means a wicked person. When he says, "Deliver my darling from the power of the dog," it is a prayer that God would deliver his only son from the hands of wicked men. In Eastern countries, dogs are reckoned as unclean animals, and there, if you want to give a man a bad name, you call him a dog. But there are good dogs and bad dogs, dogs to be trusted and dogs to be avoided. Let us think about the good dogs first. Most of you have read the beautiful story of the hound Gillert. In a Scott's beautiful story of the Talisman, there is a story of Roswal, a noble deerhound who kept guard over the English standard. And there are dogs of St. Bernard who go out in the snow to rescue lost travelers. And there are the blind men's dog. All these are good dogs, but there are bad ones also. Here are the names of some of them. First, there is a dog called Sulky. a black dog. I remember when I was a little boy, my mother used to tell me not to let the black dog get on my shoulder. That is, not to be sulky. When a child is bitten by the black dog, his face becomes quite changed. All his beauty goes, and his character is altered too. He becomes stubborn, obstinate, won't work, won't play. His speech is altered too. He is rude, and the very tone of his voice is quite different. Beware of that black dog. Then there is another dog, a red one, this. And he is called Passion. Yes, a very fiery red dog with gleaming cruel eyes and foaming mouth. If he bites you, he sends you mad for a time. The old Romans were quite right when they called anger a snort of madness. If you see a child with a very red face kicking and stamping and screaming, you may be sure that the fierce dog of passion has bitten him. Julius Caesar, when he was provoked, used to say over all the letters of the Roman alphabet before he gave an answer, beware then of that fierce dog Passion. There is another dog of which you must beware. He is called Idly. You never see him doing anything useful, carrying a basket or a bundle, as some dogs will. He lies in the sun sleeping, almost too lazy to get up and eat his food. Don't let him bite you. If he bites a child, the boy or girl becomes heavy and slow. Instead of getting up in the morning, fresh and bright, with plenty of time to say his prayers and start for school after breakfast. The child bitten by dog Idle gets up late and so begins the day badly. The only thing he cares for is play, and very often he is too idle even for that. There is another dog called Mischief, which is a very dangerous dog. You must not think that I am speaking of fun and merriment. They are good dogs, which skip and play about and do good, not harm. But Mischief is sly and secret. He goes about in dark places and is never safe to meddle with. When a child is bitten by dog Mischief, no one can tell what harm he may do. I know a poor man, blind for life through a stone throw by a mischievous boy. There's another dog of which you must beware. His name is Careless. He is not so bad as some dogs. At times we can scarcely help liking him, and yet he does much harm. When a child is bitten by dog Careless, things go badly with him. Perhaps in school, the child is writing a copy. Suddenly he lets a great drop of ink fall on his copybook, and there is a blot. And he is guilty of more things than these. Be on your guard against dog Careless. There are many other dogs of which I could warn you, but will only speak of two. There is dog Selfish, one of the worst dogs of all. When we get a bite from him, we are never happy ourselves, and we make others unhappy too. Then there is another dog called Greedy. Children are often bitten by him, and they generally suffer. For greedy people, by trying to get too much, often lose all. There is a fable which tells us how dog Greedy was one day crossing a bridge over a river and carrying a piece of meat in his mouth. As he looked into the river, he saw his own shadow, thinking it was another dog who carried a larger piece of meat than his own. Dog Greedy flew at him with an angry bark, and as he opened his mouth, the meat fell into the river and was lost. So it is often with greedy people, because they are not content with what they have, they lose it altogether. That's H.J. Wilmot Buxton, M.A. So, I'm sure the filmmakers were aware of these excerpts, these writings about the dog and about the power of the dog, and which did frame a lot of their thinking in the movie, The Power of the Dog. So, you know, I wouldn't put this movie in my top 30 probably, but it's a real good movie. Um, yeah, I mean, I would say it's a fine film. You know, and obviously the Oscars like it because of the gay cowboy thing. You know, if you, you know, unfortunately the Oscars are extremely propagandic, but, you know, I'm not a homophobe, so gayness doesn't bother me. In fact, I like looking at, you know, thinking about it because, you know, in my opinion, any movie, any good movie should make you feel something. You know, you don't want a movie that just makes you feel disgusted and angry and down and sick the whole time, you know, or something like that. But, you know, every movie should evoke some emotion. Every good film, in my opinion, evokes emotion. And the Power of the Dog does that okay. You know, it's really not bad at all. Cumberbatch is always good. You know, he's one of my favorite actors. He's my favorite Avenger. You know, Doctor Strange. I think Cumberbatch is very good in that. And, you know, he did a movie called The Imitation Game, which actually one of the characters is based on my grandfather. And that movie is about the in World War II in Bletchley Park. They tried to they built a computer. Alan Turing built the first computer to discover a Nazi code that they were using for communications, which they ended up doing, at least according to history. But anyways, yeah, that's my review of Power of the Dog, the Netflix original that was just nominated for 12 Oscars, and so I believe that's 2021. I mean, it's 2022 now, but I believe that those are the films for 2021. So I hope you liked my review. I hope you liked this video. I'm Jason Miller, and this is The Truth and Stuff. Thank you.